What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. What a weird day yesterday. If you were online, it was insane because Nintendo decided to mention the Virtual Console just not really in the way that everyone wanted to hear about it. In fact, it was a way that made people kind of freak out online. And we're going to have to go through this a bit here because there's a lot to talk about, a lot of sides to this thing, and I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Virtual Console in the comments, so feel free to, because a lot of people have different views on this, and it's going to be kind of a longer segment, I think, in the beginning about the Virtual Console, because there are some things that I think we need to at least understand about what's happening, because there seem to be a lot of assumptions being made right now, and we have to kind of talk about that. Also, before we get into it, one of my favorite games from back in the day is now backwards compatible on the Xbox One, and it's absolutely outstanding. They announced it on Twitter, so I immediately went. And I'm actually downloading it. I'm going to play it a bit here, and I'm actually going to show you some of the gameplay of me playing it on the Xbox One. Burnout Revenge is now backwards compatible, and it is my favorite Burnout. It's like one of the best ones. And I'm so happy that it's here. It's $9.99, by the way, digitally, if you don't already have the disc. If you still have the disc, well, I guess you could pop it right in and play it. But otherwise, you just go on there. It's like 4 gigabytes. You download it. It's $10 and you're in. So, wow, what a nice surprise. I love these backwards compatible announcements, by the way. It's kind of out of nowhere half the time. And it's just so neat to see, whether it was Dragon Age 2 the other day or all those original Xbox games. And the pricing has been exceptionally fair. $10 for a game like Burnout Revenge, that's perfectly reasonable. So I'm super excited to be playing quite a bit of that, actually, I think, tonight. But guys, for today, let's get started. So, if you were around last night, you probably saw a lot of the information going around about Nintendo's online service. I did a whole video on it. If you missed that, you can check it out in the card above. And it seemed like, for the most part, people looked at it and they said, okay, cloud saves. Okay, there's this thing where you get a set amount of games and they're adding online to them. That's a pretty neat feature to have online for some of these games, whereas I just talked about the Xbox backwards compatibility. Well, they don't really have online, which is weird because that'd be great to have that for some of those games like Crimson Skies, for example. But they don't have it, and Nintendo's adding it, and that's great. But, of course, everyone keeps asking about the Virtual Console. Well, seems like Nintendo answered really what a lot of people didn't want to hear. And they answered Kotaku in an email saying, there are currently no plans to bring classic games together under the Virtual Console banner, as has been done on other Nintendo systems. And once again, that was with Kotaku. They posted the whole article. They seemed to reach out after this information came out because they were, I think, as confused as the rest of us. Is this the end of Virtual Console as we know it? It appears to be. Yes, but here's the thing. They say they have no plans of releasing these classic games under the Virtual Console banner as we know it. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not releasing these classic games. They just seem to be doing something different, something that actually confuses me slightly because it's not typical Nintendo. What they appear to be doing here is actually good for consumers. That's the weird thing about this. Listen, Nintendo is not the best when it comes to being pro-consumer. Generally, they're fairly anti-consumer if you actually really look at their business practices, whether it's not really dropping prices on a lot of their games, offering pretty bad online service at times, no voice chat, and of course, they make you rebuy those games a lot, don't they? I mean, think about it. They've resold me Mario World several times, even the latest time on the Super Nintendo Classic. So what we're seeing here is something very different. One is Nintendo being prosumer, technically, and they're getting with the times. So what do I mean exactly they're being a prosumer, pro-consumer? Well, when they originally announced this, you remember a while ago, at the beginning of the year, they at least talked about the online service in that you would get one game, right? You'd get one game per month and you can decide if you want to keep it or not. And as long as you have the online service, you can continue to play it. And then they would rotate games in and out. Do you remember a lot of backlash for that? Remember a lot of people were like, one game, that's it? One NES game, one Super Nintendo game, that's all they're going to give us? But now they come to the table with 20 games, 20 classic games. It seems to be NES, seems to be the starting point. The issue I have here is there's a few issues. One, I honestly think Nintendo is backing themselves into a corner without realizing that. We're going to talk about that in the second. The other thing, they seem to have no idea what's going on with Super Nintendo or things outside of that. And the big reason is, I don't think they could figure out if they are getting the right value back for the games they're given. I mean, $20 a year at the base price? A family plan is $35 for 8 different accounts? What? This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen when it comes to pricing, because let's say they get to a point where they have like 60 games on there. To me, that's probably worth more than $20 a year, and that's where the issue comes in. Will Nintendo have to raise this price in the future? Honestly, probably yes, and that's going to incite a whole new riot on its own. The other alternative is to do tiered pricing, but that would just become confusing. Do you want to have basically something in front of you? It looks like you setting up your cable plan where it's like, oh, do you want these generation of systems or these generation of games? Like, do you want the Nintendo 64 one? Check here, that's $5 more on your plan. Do you want GameCube? That's another 10. And it seems like that would be exceptionally confusing for them in the first place to have to keep track of all of this and us to try to keep track of it and pick these things out ourselves. That's the issue we're running into. Really, I know people don't want to hear it, but Nintendo should have probably come to the table with more and just charged more, because they're already severely undercharged compared to their competition, but they'd also have to show up with a much better online service when it comes to communication and just overall features. Seriously, there's a mess brewing here that I can see, and I think it's going to become harder and more difficult for them to raise the price the longer this goes on. On the one hand, though, the price is good. The games seemingly are service-based, which is more with the times, as we're seeing pretty much everyone else do it. I mean, even Sony does it with their PlayStation Now. It's not very good, but they still do it, right? I mean, they also kind of offer the classics like the PS1 games and even PS2 games to a degree for people to buy, but we don't know everything about this service. The one thing I like is that it sounds like these games will follow you between console generations, or at least between consoles, because it will be tied to your account. That's great, right? That's kind of what people have wanted. That's what people have been yelling about for so long. I mean, think about it. Everything we had on the Wii should have just transferred over to the Wii U, but how many people bought those games again? Wouldn't you prefer to have this service back on the Wii just so it would follow you to, say, the Wii U? Maybe it wasn't possible back then, but now it is, so I don't really know why. The only thing I can think of is that people just want to own the games, which, by the way, we don't even know if we can purchase these outright yet because they haven't told us. Originally, we would be able to. They just haven't commented on that yet. And I guess the other thing is they're concerned if things come out of circulation as things are added in. And that is a legitimate concern. The one thing I'm honestly surprised about, though, with Nintendo is they went from 1 to 20, right? 1 game a month to 20 games. They seemingly listen to everybody on the internet or just around talking about this. Seriously, it was very odd to see that. They seem to be listening more than ever right now, so I guess, hey, make your voices heard, but it seems like Nintendo is at least trying to get with the times. They just need to figure out how they are going to walk this tightrope of price and games offered. And honestly, they might as well let people buy the games if they want to keep them. I know there is another argument to be had that if they offer all of this stuff on their service to buy, that people just won't spend money on indie games. And that is a legitimate concern. But what can you do? It's just people want to buy these games and they want a new experience with the Switch when you can do things like play Nintendo 64 games on the go. It's a serious tightrope. It's going to be interesting seeing how Nintendo walks it. But one thing's for sure, guys, we don't have all the information, and there's a lot of assumptions being made online. So for now, keep an eye out for any actual information from Nintendo. And please, Nintendo, tell us sooner than September about what's happening. Don't tell us a week before this service goes live. Spend some time in a direct, update your website, tell us what we can expect from this ahead of time, because the shocking thing, the thing that everyone should be mostly frustrated with, is just the lack of information from Nintendo. That should be the most concerning part, because it almost seems like they're kind of just making it up as they go, and well, that's not good. Next up, let's talk a little bit about E3 and Square Enix, because they're having their own showcase, and that's pretty exciting because, of course, I'm a big fan of what they can usually offer with their Final Fantasy remake that I would love to see there, but it probably won't be. Kingdom Hearts, of course, will probably be front and center, maybe even some Octopath Traveler news, but it's always fun to see what they could be announcing, whether it's new IPs or maybe ports of older games like they do occasionally. But this is actually happening June 11th, and they did send out an email to a lot of different people. 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll, of course, be doing full coverage here. It's going to be really fun, I think, and just everything's going to be streamed, so we'll get to watch it. It's going to be streamed on Twitch, YouTube, and Mixer. Of course, if you're at E3, you can also, I assume, attend this. I don't know if it's a limited seating or anything, but this is going to be fun to see, and I'm really looking forward to see what they could be announcing. Again, there are some basics we know about, and I have a feeling there's a lot, and I mean a lot of unknowns that they could be working on, as they've been talking about trying to push more games out, more Final Fantasy games out to all platforms. That includes the Switch, PS4, Xbox One? Kingdom Hearts is at least going there, so we'll see what they have to offer. Just keep an eye out, and we'll keep you guys updated here. Next up, let's quickly touch on Anthem, because a lot of us have been wondering when it's coming out, right? EA has kind of let us know, okay, it's sometime in 2019. We heard that kind of being thrown around and everything. And it looks like they've at least given us an idea. They had their investors briefing in their conference call and everything, and they talked a lot about, well, everything coming up. Battlefield will have a single player. So there you go, the new Battlefield, which we should see an announcement soon-ish, and we can kind of stem some of those rumors, whether it's Bad Company 3 or it's a World War II project or Battlefield V or 5 or whatever. I think I'm just ready to see it, but it is going to have a single player. Something that the massive amounts of rumors are pushing around for Call of Duty is that it won't, but again, it's rumors for now. But the other thing was they gave us an idea of when Anthem would be coming out. They said the last month in their fiscal year, and that is March. So there you go. It looks like, at least according to them for now, Blake Jorgensen, March 2019 is when we can expect Anthem to launch. I think that's a good month for it, to be honest. It kind of gets out of the way of all the stuff in the holiday, and it could probably open up pretty strong in March. We don't really know what else will be coming out then, but I think that's a good time for it, and hopefully Anthem is good, because it at least looked like it'd be an interesting game, but I was more so concerned about the heavy amounts of loot boxes and microtransactions. It seems like the developers there heard us, and they're tiptoeing around the situation. So if they at least provide a good game with, like, they're going to have some kind of monetization, but, you know, at least try not to take advantage of every single person who plays the game, it could be actually a good experience. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft. We're coming up on E3, and this seems to be like a seriously important E3 for Microsoft. They have the massive building rented out and everything, the big theater room, and they're going to be showing hopefully a lot of stuff. But the biggest complaint and the biggest criticism about Microsoft is the AAA games, their single-player games in general, are just games, not really existent for them from their first-party studios. They seem to contract a lot of positions out and don't really have a lot of internal studios. Well, it looks like they're at least changing that. They're reacting to this. I think it might be too late for this generation, though. This was actually spotted by Richu over on Reset Era, as you're seeing here. And this is a full job listing for an executive producer or lead producer. And the idea here is to develop and work to create large AAA experiences, and you can see at the top, develop and manage the product production and launch of across various platforms from both a development and publishing perspective, deliver financial and scheduled goals on time and to quality, build and lead and manage a production team working in conjunction with multiple cross-functional groups to deliver milestones. It goes on further, but it does seem to ask to their experiences for creating high-quality AAA games. And this is Microsoft pretty much, I think, getting ready for next generation. If they're hiring somebody now to be a product manager, essentially, and produce this game, you know, just be a producer in general, lead producer, I don't know if that would be for anything for the Xbox One, or at least in the next couple of years. If they're hiring for this now, they have an idea of what they want, and they need somebody who can at least lead the team. And it might be something they have 3 years down the line, 4 years. I mean, it's going to be some time. This could be kind of getting ready for the next generation. Maybe this is like a project that they have in the works for a launch title, maybe a first-year title. But I don't think this is anything for the right now, because it's too late. And our last bit of news, let's talk about something that was kind of thrown around the internet yesterday. A lot of people were talking about it. And it turns out, it's something we heard about before, but this is as like straight up as it gets in terms of confirmation, because they talked about it on the Nintendo Power podcast. They talk about how Tropical Freeze, the port job for Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, was handled by Retro Studios. And this seemed to throw people off pretty badly. I thought we had heard about this a month or so ago, but it seemed like it was being reported on because they did mention it on this Nintendo Power podcast. And that concerned people, because a lot of people were worried that this was Retro Studios project for the past 4 years and they've been gone, and I can tell you that's probably not the case. More than likely because they had, well, quite a bit of experience with this game, whether it was the engine or just the game in general, the development and programming of it, they would probably be the easiest ones to get to port it over to the Nintendo Switch, and in conjunction it would probably give a small subset of them, a team that they probably put on it, very small team, because porting this probably wasn't the biggest task in the world, at least some experience ahead of time with the Nintendo Switch when they were moving this over. I do think that they are still working on a larger project. I'd like to see an original IP, but you know what? I'm keeping it grounded for something we might already know about. I think worst case scenario is just another Donkey Kong game, another tropical freestyle game. Best case scenario being some really cool original IP, maybe something in the first person shooter genre, maybe something in the horror genre. They're very good with that kind of environment with Metroid Prime. So that's something I would like to see, or maybe they just get crazy and do something that none of us can really guess, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's just they were probably the easiest ones to grab from a team internally that could just move this over in a timely fashion. Seriously, probably didn't even take them that long to get done. It certainly didn't take 4 years to get this done, so don't worry too much about it. It was just the easy way to go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Virtual Console. Where do you fall on this? Because some people just want to buy the game and be done with it, right? Even if they've bought it several times, I understand the Switch technically offers a new experience. You know, Nintendo 64 games on the go on something like the Switch is amazing because we didn't have that on things like the 3DS, right? I remember you could have Game Boy Advance games if you were part of the Ambassador program, which means that you spent a lot of money on the 3DS when no one else had to. So obviously you could run them, but for some reason they just never really offered them. So I get why it's so appealing to have that, or maybe you didn't really buy a lot of Nintendo systems since the GameCube or the Wii, and you keep hearing about this Virtual Console possibly coming to the Switch, and now it's not. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this, because I know there's a lot of different opinions, and I'm really curious of people's different viewpoints. Also, what do you think about Square Enix's event here? Do you think it's going to be pretty cool? What do you want to see from it? Because E3 is coming, guys, and Microsoft has to deliver, and man, I would love to see Square show up with some pretty cool stuff. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.